Welcome to everyone. We are really glad that you had a time to join us, Vilnius Legal Hackers Online event. My name is Ernesta and I am one of Legal Hackers community here in Vilnius. I am a lawyer myself, and today we are going to discuss about platform economy and ecosystems together with my colleague Anne from Finland. I have to admit that first time I learned about ecosystem was only a year ago, and Anne was the one who shared some insights and experience. So this is the reason why we have requested Anne to share her experience and give us a bit bigger understanding what exactly a platform economy is. So before I give the floor to Annie, I would like to give you a few reminders. Everyone is muted now. If you have any kind of questions, you are asked to provide your questions by using WhatsApp, which is available under Eventbrite, and we will answer your questions after event. So Anne, now it's your floor, and please deliver us information you plan for today.
Welcome everyone, good afternoon and greetings from Finland. I'm in a very rainy Helsinki at the moment, so definitely change of weather. Let's see that I'll open you my presentation so you can see some insights as well. As Ernesta mentioned, I'm working with her as a lawyer. I have been lawyering for well over a decade. It's suddenly that day comes that you notice that you've been practicing law for a while. So let's start looking at today's topic, platform economy and ecosystems, and why the legal community should care about it and why should we know about it. I want to first start by telling you a little bit where I work and what I do currently. I work at Fondia. It's a very innovative law firm doing business legal for all size companies. We're helping all the way from startups to listed companies. What attracted me first to Fondia was the concept of legal department as a service. And why I want to bring it up is that I feel like working on a platform and in an ecosystem when I work at Fondia. So I see a strong connection. I feel a strong connection with what I do daily in my own work with what I do with customers. We have currently offices in 6 cities in Finland, and then in Sweden 2 offices, and Tallinn and Vilnius, which is our youngest in the family. We're really happy to have an own place also with you guys. What I mean by working as an ecosystem, we have over 110 lawyers in all of these offices. Well, currently home offices. I'm at home as well currently. So we work as let's say regular employees, but we do work as teams. We broaden our knowledge all the time. And my role as an internal group cross-competence lead is partly related to that. I want to find the networks within our lawyers and share the knowledge, and also the ones who are supporting lawyers, also other professionals. We all need each other when we're dealing with businesses. So my background before Fondia has been with taxi industry, and as you all probably know and have noticed, taxi industry has faced a lot of disruption the last basically the last decade, but at the same time taxi industry has been working as a platform and as an ecosystem for an even longer time. Digitalization changes things, but we have that's a good example of an industry that has worked as a network for a long time. I'll come back to that and why I state so. At this point, as we're dealing with a community here as well, you can see here under is my also my Twitter account if you want to go and check, and then some hashtags you can use if you want to raise some questions and discussion also, for example, on Twitter. So what are we talking about today? I want to sort of give you a little bit food for thought, and then we can hopefully share some insights together. Let's start with going through a little bit of the today's concepts. Platform economy, ecosystems. There's a lot of terminology that is sometimes mixed up. And then take a look at the relationship between the different actors, and obviously as a red thread, that why should lawyers and legal professionals care about this? Isn't this a business question? So let's take a look at the playing field where we are. Platform economy is very widely used currently, but it's basically a system, a business idea of a company providing a platform for other traders, other businesses, other private persons to join, to add value, and then to trade on the platform. Digital platforms and platforms for sharing data make new business models possible, as we have seen the current or the recent years. For example, well, I mentioned taxi industry, so Uber is one of these examples. But we've had platforms for a very long time. For example, Microsoft, it's a platform. We are all using it as a platform. Different businesses are building on it. We have, well, maybe the oldest platform system, well, the word platform comes from it, railways. That's a network of rails, and different businesses work on it to transport people. So it's a very wide concept, but the idea is that we come together on a platform and add value to the tradable product or service. What is very often taken into this discussion is circular economy, also a very hype word and hype and very trending phenomena. Consumption based on using services and material through sharing, leasing, recycling, and using all of the material instead of ownership. Many of these services work on platforms. So that's very connected. Then we have gig economy, and this is where we get most of our headlines, I would say, currently, because it's related to employees and it's very tangible and comes close to people. So working in short-term, very short-term sometimes, temporary working relationships under a contract by invoicing as a sole trader and not as an employee. So this is the big difference, and why I'm not using the word employee, because this is meant to be based on sole trading and people working directly with companies or other people. So gig economy. If you want to Google a lot of, for example, cases or opinions or projects on legislation, they are very related to gig economy. And then we have business ecosystems. Obviously, we have the ecosystem in nature, but business ecosystems, it's already taken up in the 90s as a concept. But economic community, which is supported by a foundation of interacting organizations and individuals, and where suppliers, producers, other stakeholders meet. So a very wide concept of working together, but not as one company or one group. Producing goods and services of value to customers, and they are also members of this ecosystem. So over time, all of these actors co-evolve their capabilities. They might change roles, and they tend to align. So trying to network together as businesses to find something that's valuable for all, sort of to find the win-win situation. And this is the quite important part, is that relationship between these different actors. When we look at especially gig economy companies, which are platforms, we come to the question of what are the relations between the different actors. But from a lawyer point of view, you need to know always the relationship between the different parties. That's very in the core of being a legal professional, is to think about the parties and the different agreements that are formed and the different relations, and what type of regulations do we have that are tied to those relations. So I've tried to describe it a little bit as if you take a look at one platform, we have a platform Ltd, which has obviously its own employees working on the platform. There's a CEO usually leading the business, and then we have subcontractors providing different resources to the platform. There are all sorts of, for example, you might need both the location, but you might need the digital solutions. We have a seller connecting to the platform, using the platform to provide their own product or service, and then we have a buyer. And directly, the buyer can be a customer, or the customer, it can be a consumer, or it might be another business. And this goes on. So the same customer then might be a subcontractor to another platform, and so forth, creating an even wider ecosystem and also a wider platform. And this is really important, that you need to know in which sort of circle of relations you are in as a lawyer. So you need to understand the idea of the platform Ltd if you want to help them, or you have to understand the point of view of a subcontractor providing to the platform, or if it's a seller of the that uses the platform. Because obviously you want other different things from this cooperation. We have many examples, like said, gig economy side and digital solutions are in fact the new, let's say, new way of working in many cases. Coming back to the digital platforms, as we know how railroads work, at the beginning there were no standards, for example. So there were no rules on how to form those railroads. And well, obviously then we ended up in a pickle when the rail width, for example, changes in the middle of nowhere and you can't go further. So coming from that background to the digital solutions, there is a question of having those standards, those rules. Do we have them? So what are the connections with smart platforms and law? Well, like I said, there are several types of different platforms. We have social networks, we have Facebook, for example, a really strong player. We have marketplaces like Amazon, we have search engines, we have Google, we have news platforms, app stores, it goes on. We have very specialized search engines and comparison sites. We have very many gig economy service providers and networks. And then we have the different sides of legal, different sides of law that come and play on this playing field. Myself, I have been working with, as a GC, so general counsel, having to deal with all sorts of legal matters from between, well, anything you can imagine almost. I have, I have needed to look into if you can keep a cow on the road or not, and whose fault is it if a car hits it. So you can imagine. So agreements, employees, product liability, marketing, consumers, IPR, operating regulations, taxes, these all are connected to business questions, business legal questions. And obviously when building a business, our dear business-minded colleagues who work from other fields of expertise, they don't want to really dig into law or legal. Traditionally, legal has been sadly seen as the no-sayer, and that's why they don't want to ask. And this is why we need to step up our game as legal professionals. We want to be able to find the right answers to all of these questions that are related to building a platform or handling a platform or joining a platform in a way that makes sense to the business. Because this is here to stay. We have platforms as business. Obviously, we're not experts in all areas of law, everyone. None of us, basically. There's a point where you need to turn to someone who has more experience. But what is really important is that these issues, to know that these issues are so diverse. And it's really important to know that these platforms are so diverse. Because when it comes to platforms and law, we have evolving case law. We don't have the rules necessarily. Currently, there's easy legislation going on EU level where we're trying to find, for example, rules for gig economy. Those are quite related to, in many cases, similar rules that we already have in employment legislation and labor laws. So it basically states that if an employee must be treated as an employee, but it doesn't solve the question of who is the employee necessarily. We still have to do that by case law. There we have, from recent years, several cases, for example, from UK related to Uber. We have cases related from Spain, for example, to food delivery services. And what's really comes and is emphasized in those cases is that they are looking at the contractual relationships and what is working on the platform, how it's structured, and what are the practicalities. and then they're looking at the circumstances in the case. But you need to know the relationship between the players, and it needs to show in the, for example, documentation. So very much hacking the legal there, that you need to be able to build something on paper that has not been done before in this vast spread as it is now. It's a very, very diverse and very complex, in many cases, network that needs to be handled. What I always want to emphasize is, because we have this evolving system, we have evolving platforms, we have evolving ecosystems, is that when we have a same game, we need to have the same rules. And obviously, when we don't have the same game, we need different rules. And that's why we can't really solve everything up front. As a legal professional, the first and foremost question, as you see the players on the field, and you see the platform LTD, and you see the different actors there, you need to know which game are we playing. Which field are we playing on? Let's start with that. Is it a digital platform? Obviously, quite often it is. Is it global? Is it local? Are we working within Europe? Are we working outside Europe? That plays a strong role. It's a big role. What are we playing with? What's the equipment? Is it data? Is it knowledge? Is it something that you can possess, material? So what's moving? What are we selling? What are we buying? Who is playing? Is it B2B? Is it B2C? Are there employees? So it's really much digging into the business idea of the case. Who is the judge? Are there supervising authorities who give rulings or guidance? What are we playing for? Where's the money? What's the revenue logic? And this is something that often is overlooked by lawyers because it's such a business question. Is that I would say follow the money. so to know which player are we and who are the others, it's often you can find the answers in following the idea behind the revenue logic. So these different roles, when you have figured out the game, then you can figure out about what rules do you have. What are the rules that are absolutely mandatory? What are the rules that have some work room there? So then you can sort of know a little bit where you're at. Contracts, obviously, and agreements come into play. You need to be able to, like I said, you need to be able to put it on paper. We still, or some form of documentation, we still want to track, because people's memories are lousy. We can't trust them. We all feel, and we all know that feeling of yeah, we'll agree upon it, and let's figure out the details later. And then we don't remember what we actually agreed upon. So I think that as legal professionals, you don't need to be reminded of the burden of proof. So at some point you want to have something reminding what we actually were meant to do. But then we need to go back to the rules. There are rules that might regulate what we can agree upon. Responsibilities, we have lots and lots of legislation related, for example, to consumers. It's been a very hot topic in Finland, for example, recently, that the consumers need to know who is providing which part of the service, which come from platforms, for example. So it's really important to stay on top. I think that here it's really important to remember that as we have evolving case law, is that we also have evolving regulation, we have evolving ecosystems, we have evolving platforms. So change is constant. So that's why I think that it's really important that legal is always with the business in developing these services. And that's I want us to be something else that the no-sayers. Because it's very important to, when building the case from the beginning, as seen from the case law that we've had, you need to be able to know the structure, you need to be able to follow the steps, you need to be able to be constant in what you're doing. You can't state that something is not an employment if everything that you do points towards an employment. So in that case, you need to build it as an employment relationship with all that it comes with, pros and cons. So as a legal professional, you need to be there to interpret, to guide, to have these many hats as a future lawyer, if you may. So it's very important to understand the platforms, understand the business logic, and law and legal should be seen as partner in the development and solving these questions as they come along and before everything is final, because then it might be that we've lost years and then legal becomes the no-sayer. This sets quite high standards for future lawyers. You have to understand the change, you have to understand the business, you have to understand the world, and you have to understand how the legal areas affect one another and how they work together. So you don't need to know all the answers, but as a legal professional working with platforms, you need to know who to contact when you come across something. You need to have the small alarm going off that I need to check something. You can't forget legislation even if it's not there. So you need to be quite brave. You need to be able to take a look at what you have and put it in a context where it not necessarily, it might be that it's never been there. So because we don't have platform economy legislation, we don't have ecosystems legislation, and we're not going to have. We might have legislation restricting some parts of for example, well, GDPR and data, and that affects the business, but it doesn't tell everything. It doesn't tell all the answers. So you need to be very sort of on top of things. You need to find the partners, you need to find the relations, you need to find the questions, and you need to find the possibilities. Because I really don't want to see situations where there might be something great coming along. We all been there. We want better service as consumers. We are all on the other side as well. I bet many of you have been using, for example, Volt as bringing you guys delicious foods, being in staying at home now during the spring, or you might be very very flexible in using e-platforms for for buying things. Amazon brings you whatever you want, basically. So definitely, we all want future things to happen. We want to hack the legal in platforms and when it comes to ecosystems, but we need to be responsible. We don't want to do it in a way that breaks all the rules, and because at the end it's the people who end up in the mess. Um, so to know what game are we playing and with who, that helps a long way. And it's always better to have the legal in the development, understanding the platforms and how they work, and what's the idea, and what's the added value we're looking at, so that we can find the answers sooner rather than later. What I want you to remember is that it's the same for the business. Once asked is not necessarily something that works in the next phase. So you need to go back. You need to find the questions again and again and again and again. So definitely a never-ending learning field when it comes to platforms and ecosystems. I'm not going to take you further down the road inside the technicalities of platforms and ecosystems, or APIs, if you've heard that abbreviation. So what I would like is that to hear a little bit what type of situations have you faced as a consumer or as a legal professional. What comes to mind? I think it's really important to sort of overlook the fact that this is something new and try to find the similarities in something else you have been doing. That's using your expertise, using your background, using your all that you have in your toolbox, and definitely networking with your colleagues. I don't think that platform economy or different marketplaces or different ecosystems are a lonely lawyer job. You always need, well, you should have your platform where you work with colleagues. It might be a law firm, it might be something else, but you need to be connected because you can't sort of evolve on and develop new ideas and new case law, new regulations, find new questions and answers by yourself. This has been a very, very sort of brief oversight on platforms and what it has to do with legal and ecosystems and what it has to do with legal. I hope that I can discuss this further with you guys now and even in the future. So if you have any questions, you're free to contact me and continue the discussion. There's lots and lots of great articles, and especially for a lawyer, I want to recommend. There's one book called Business of Platforms. Cusimano and colleagues have written that, so that's something that I can definitely recommend as an oversight. There's even a short chapter on the legal matters, but it really opens up the concept of platforms and economy and why businesses are so keen to take a look at this business model. So any questions, thoughts, comments you might have? I have been promised to be given those.
Thank you, Anne. We are checking questions. And guys, I would like to invite you to share your questions, if any. And me, myself, as a lawyer, I kind of have like a lawyerish question, because platform economy is something what is really combined, like it's about business, it's about technologies, and it's about law. So then you think about nowadays lawyer, like, shall I become like a businesswoman in order to make, in order to deal with platform economy, or should I learn new IT stuff? Or you would see that as a group of people knowing different areas when working with platform economy, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's a very big task in a sense. It's working with platform economy. Everyone sort of have their, because obviously technical IT folk, they know their point of view, and business economics, they know what they want out of the platform. I think that working together with many different expertise, you also learn yourself. You don't have to become the expert in these different areas. And legal I find it as a tremendously wonderful platform for learning a lot of things, learning from these different experts, and then taking that experience and knowledge further. So you become sort of all of these truly. I know this is not the traditional view, but I think legal gives a very good background on from different perspectives and learning from them, and then using it further. Obviously, if you want to be a tech expert and know how to code those platforms, then you should probably go on that path. It doesn't hurt, I would say.
Okay. We also had Mohammed who joined our discussion, and he is actually asking for anyone to suggest him how to break into legal tech. Any ideas, Anne?
Well, I think curiosity and courage. These are two things that come to mind. Being open about it, asking, networking. So definitely being able to state that I don't know about this stuff yet, I'm not sure. That usually is the best way in anywhere.
Wonderful answer. Any further question, guys?
Yes, hello. Thank you for a wonderful presentation. And I would like to ask Anne what she thinks about such situation that actually Europe as a continent, it loses in a, let's say, that fight for the digital economy, and basically China and US is sharing the biggest part of digital economy. So maybe there are some problems in Europe because we have like different jurisdictions, or the tax system is different. So it's very hard to establish platform and to work in the market of Europe, because still we have like geo blockings and things like that. And maybe it's easier just to start in the US or in China, in bigger markets. What do you think about that?
I think that there are several things that affect it. I'm of the same opinion in that sense. Platform economies quite often aim to, especially when they are related to gig economy, there's a certain number of people who can work with certain platforms. So they aim to take over quite quickly. And obviously, we have a lot of regulations in Europe, which is in the sense when we talk about employees or corporate responsibility questions, it's a good thing in that sense. We're trying to protect. But sometimes I think that there is a problem of legal sometimes being a little bit too narrow-minded. or a little bit too cautious in looking at where the boundary actually goes in certain areas. So I think that we need to be able to adapt the old rules to the new businesses in a more agile way. And this might be the case that, for example, in US, case law is very differently built. So it's easier to start and then go on until someone says that you are not allowed to. In Europe, we have sort of opposite thinking. I'm not saying that we should break the rules because obviously I'm a lawyer. I like rules, but it's I do agree that we are, by being cautious, we might be too slow. And also, this is what I mean by that legal should be there from the beginning when you develop something, because it makes it faster as well. If you bring a ready-made product and tell the legal to, yeah, we just need this agreement on this X thing, this platform, it might be very difficult to make it happen. But if you have legal all the way through, you can build the whole system so that it fits and can be transcribed into legal as well. And you might be able to put out stuff on the market quicker. This is my hypothesis. So too cautious sometimes towards new things. That's probably one of the packages Europe has.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. If no further questions, we have final notes for today's event. And first of all, I know that not everyone were able to see us from the very beginning. So don't worry, guys. You will receive link with the record of the webinar, and will be able to hear all the content which was delivered during this online event. Additionally, to conclude this webinar, I would really love to invite you to join our community. We are on various social networks. I would say we are more or less everywhere. So pick up the social media network which you prefer and join us. Also, this is just to let you know that for July, we are planning to have first physical event, like a meetup, where we will continue discussion of various business design topics. And for the end, I would like to say thank you for everyone who joined us. Don't hesitate to contact us if you have any kind of ideas on future events. And have a lovely midsummer.